I took the SheCodes Python Basics course and the Python Advanced course to learn a little bit more about Python development. When you finish the Python Basics course, you will have a SheCodes Python Basics certificate you can put on your LinkedIn and a final project that is a Python weather app that displays the live weather forecast of any city you want. And when you finish the Python Advanced course, you will have a SheCodes Python Advanced certificate you can also put on your LinkedIn and a Python data and graph application to show off your advanced data structure skills. So in this video, I want to talk about those two Python courses, specifically the course details like the timing, pricing, and a little bit about the homework, as well as the final project, and then also how I take notes in Notion when I'm taking programming notes specifically. Okay, so let's start with the first course, which is the Python Basics course. This is for complete beginners who've never touched Python before, or if they've never touched any programming language before. It's a 6-week-long course. If you do it part-time, you can do it full-time. So part-time is about 5 hours per week. So I always do the part-time versions. So it's 6 weeks if you do it part-time, or 3 weeks if you do it full-time, which I believe is more like 10 hours a week. So you can kind of choose which course you want to take. And it costs about $399 at the time that I'm filming this video, although I do have a discount, so I will throw that in the description as well. But that's a pretty large time commitment and money commitment, so let's take a look inside the course so you can see what you're getting. When you purchase the course, you go to SheCodes and then you have this little button up here that says My Workshops. So you go ahead and click that and that will bring you to all the workshops you've purchased or finished or whatever. So if we come in here, you'll see that I have Python Basics and Python Advanced, both say completed. This is what your view is gonna look like from an outside perspective of all the courses. So if you scroll through here, you can see that I've taken a lot of these other courses because they all say completed, except for some of the add-ons I haven't done yet. So if you wanna get an idea of what classes you still have to take, this is a really good view. But then once you get in the class, so we're talking about SheCodes Basics, you come into this class. Now it will say continue or something, not it's completed. And then you'll get a like diagram or kind of graph that shows you what each week looks like. So if I scroll down, this is week 1, so you can see all the lessons in week 1, which isn't a lot, right? It's just, you know, what Python variables, Python numbers, that kind of stuff. And then a summary at the end, and then finally you have a homework. So the unique thing about SheCodes is they actually assign you homework. Now, at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. It has actual dates. I will say, it will almost guarantee you that you will finish the course. I feel like a lot of these online courses, they don't actually make you do homework. So you can kind of like put it off and like start the class, get really excited, and then you never finish. I've always finished the SheCodes courses because they have deadlines. This says September 9th, 2024, you better submit your homework. But don't worry too much because you can extend your homework. There's extension buttons. I think you get a couple per course. So don't stress too hard, but it is nice to be assigned that homework. So this is what it looks like, the whole class. That was the first week. Then the second week, you have some Python if-else statements, and then you have, you know, Booleans and stuff like that, and then, you know, summary, and then your next homework. So every week you get a homework. Keep scrolling all the way down, and you have a final project at the very end. So, and that is basically your homework for the last week. This is you building up that project, so don't stress about the final project like you're just gonna be thrown to the wolves. You are not, you'll be fine. So that's what the courses kind of looks like. Now, what I like to do is go inside this view. So if I go to this lesson completed, you'll see this view. And this is the view that I like week by week. So your first week, this is the view I would recommend you looking at, not the big picture, because that's a little overwhelming. So this one's really great because you can see each course. Now, each one, so if we go into like Python variables, for example, you'll get a learn tab where you have like a 13-minute, 5 to 10 minute, sometimes, I think the most I've seen is like 17 minutes. You have a learn lesson where you watch it. There's usually like snippets of code here, and you can copy it and put it into Notion, which I'll show you how I do that later. And then you have a challenge. So after you've done learning, then you go to the challenge section, and it's a short little challenge. You have to submit your code, and then you have a solution video once you submit it. And the way you submit your code is actually a URL to like this online code editor. And he shows you how to use it and how to do that and all that stuff. But that's basically what you're submitting. You're submitting a URL. And then if your solution, you realize you messed up, you can edit the code. It's the same URL. So it's really nice to be able to challenge yourself and then see the solution video after. Now, I did mention you have to use this fancy code editor to submit your homework and your challenges and your final project. This is what they use. It's called Replit, and you can use the free version. I ended up paying and then they'll reimburse you. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do. I like to have everything in different buckets or different REPLs so that I don't have to constantly be changing the code. So I have each homework in here so you can see I use one for challenges that I update for each challenge, and then I have them all broken out in homework. So if I just open up, let's just open up week 4 homework. And this is the advanced one, but just to show you what it looks like. You code in here, you can click run to run your code, and then you just submit the URL of this site. So this specific site will have a URL, and you'll see if you click here, you'll have the name of it and it's public, and then you just copy that page. So it's really easy. You just copy that URL and then you paste it to submit your homework, to submit your final project, and to submit your challenges. So it's really easy to use. Okay, so this is great and all, but how do we take notes, right? Like, how am I taking my programming notes? Because they're not like normal handwritten notes. So what I do is I do everything in Notion. So at the bottom of each week, they have related code snippets, and it says variable creation. Here's that code. Here's variable operations. Here's that code. And you can copy this code literally like that. And what I like to do is I paste it into Notion and I organize it in a similar manner. So if I go to Notion, I have a courses library or gallery or database or whatever you want to call it in Notion. It's just one view. I have a gallery view. I also have a board view. Now, in these classes, what I'll do is I'll just add a new one. So I'll have just a bunch of courses that I've been taking, and then I make the picture what the certificate would look like. So, and I also write down, when I finished it and that kind of stuff. So if I scroll down, you can see I have made this like map. So week 1, week 2, and all this. So what I do is I just do week 1 and I do that as a heading 1. And then, which basically all you have to do is you just do this like $ space bar, and that's a heading 1. And then 2, or not $ pound signs. And then you do 2 pound signs to make it a heading 2. So I do week 1 is the heading 1. So it comes first, right, on the far left. And then this is a heading 2, which is the week's lesson. And then any notes for that specific lesson, I'll go in here. And all you have to do is do this /code. And then you can change the programming language to whatever your language is. So I just change it to Python, and then I just copy and paste. And the nice thing about this is you can copy straight from here. So I can just copy the code and paste it into my code editor as needed. And then I have it in a nice organized manner, so I can go and search for things, and I have all my notes in one place. You don't have to write anything. It's a really nice way to organize like chunks of code that you might need to go back and reference. One of the best things about SheCodes is you have a realistic project at the end. So you have a final project that's kind of being built up to throughout the course. So this was the final project for the basics course, and I thought it was very useful because it involves APIs, which are very popular and very common when you are becoming a Python developer. You need to be able to pull data off of an API. So this is a weather API, and you have to use the request library and some advanced kind of stuff, but it's built up in a way that it doesn't feel overwhelming. So this is the final project. The code here is on the left, and you slowly build this up throughout the course, which is really nice. You learn all the skills first, and then you kind of walk through and put it all together in the very last week of it. And so it's really nice, quick, kind of an easier way to learn because you're learning the skills in effort to build it for the project. There's a goal, right? The project is the goal. So if we go ahead and click run, you'll see it says, welcome to my weather app, enter a city. So we're just gonna enter Portland, press enter, and then it says today, 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's the forecast for the week. And then it says this app was built by Liz. And that's all that this code does. It creates a weather forecast based on real live weather data through a weather API. So it's a really cool and realistic project, and you're going to use some of these similar skills when you do Python development. Once you're done with the Python Basics course, you can now move to the Python Advanced course. And that is not for beginners. You start dealing with object-oriented programming, kind of advanced data structures, and even plotting data. It is also 5 weeks long, similar to the Basics course, And that's if you do it part-time. Again, that's that 5 hours a week for 5 weeks. And it is also $399, so it's the same price as I'm recording this video. Not sure if it's gone up in price, but I do have a discount, so I'll also link that below. So let's go ahead and take a peek inside. Now it's gonna be very similarly set up as the basics course. So you can kind of see them right here. Now I've done both, so I have a good idea of the differences. Now, if we come in here, it's gonna be the exact same setup, right? You're gonna have each week. Now this one's gonna be a little bit more advanced, right? You're gonna go over object-oriented programming. It's kind of how you structure code in a more like realistic way, or kind of professional way, if you will. You're gonna go into writing and reading files like CSV files, a lot on plots, because it's more advanced, data plotting, and then manipulation, organization, and then you have a final project, which I will show you in a little bit. You will also be using Replit again, so it's gonna be the same setup where you submit that URL for your homework, for your final projects, and for your challenges. So it's gonna be exact same setup as the basics course. And you will also see these code snippets again at the bottom of each lesson. And I do copy this code and put it into Notion to store all my programming notes for the course. So again, similar to how I had it set up for the basics course notes, I have the same setup for the Python Advanced. So if I click in here, again, this is just a Notion library or a Notion database. I have a bunch of information about the course, and then all the notes, I took screenshots, I've got code snippets, and you just kind of dump everything in here and try to structure it in a way that makes sense to the course, right? So week 1 will have the biggest heading, week 2. So that way you can be like, I think I learned that in week 4, or you can search it, and then you kind of have a nice little table of contents on the right here, which is very helpful when you need to go reference your notes in the future. The advanced SheCodes final project is actually really cool. So you're gonna have a file that's a CSV, and it's gonna have a bunch of data on populations for different countries and different parts of America. So you can see we have like Africa in here, Europe, and for each year. So it's specifically like Europe, and then it's 1998. This is the population in Europe for that year. So we have a CSV file, and then we also have our main Python file. So if I close that so we can take a look at the code, essentially what you get to do for this one is you get to migrate and move that code out of that data structure, the CSV, into a dictionary that also has embedded lists in it. And that makes it easier to graph. So this one also focuses on graphing as well. So if I started running the code already, and this is what the code looks like. It's quite a lot, but what's cool is they show you how to organize it. So you make these basically definitions, and then that way your actual code is only this long, and the rest of it are inside basically these formulas that define specific things that you want to do that you could reuse eventually. It's basically a more professional way to like structure your code. But this is what the graph looks like, and then I'll tell you kind of more about it. Let me just expand this. This is graphing all the years of the populations for all these different countries, and then also North America, South America, and then the world, which is very cool. You end up using some unique libraries, a little more advanced data structure stuff. The code is definitely more advanced than the basics, but this is kind of your final project to show internet population per continent, which I kind of think is cool. So hopefully this gave you a better idea of what to expect when you purchase a Python course from SheCodes. I think these are great beginner courses for Python developers because the whole purpose of the course is to build this cool project that then you can show off or put on a portfolio if you're looking for a job, or if you want to show somebody kind of what you learned in a course. I'll link my other SheCodes review courses up here and in the description below, because I have taken a lot of front-end development, which is very different than Python. Python's more back-end, more data heavy, where front end is like website building. So if you're interested in building websites, SheCodes also teaches like HTML, JavaScript, CSS, all that front end stuff with a React web framework. So I've taken all of that, although I will say web development is not for me necessarily, but I did learn some very fundamental things in those courses, like how to use APIs in a different way using JavaScript, not Python. So I feel like it's kind of cool to learn both. So I will link that up here if you're interested. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.